ready for March. Appreciating our children be so tough.
And that was Respect Our Work, written and performed by members of Domestic Workers United. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Juan?
With New York State Legislature in Albany in chaos, we turn now to one of the bills whose future is at stake, the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. It's a bill that pertains to New York, but if it passes, it could be the first such bill in the country to challenge the exclusion of the nearly 2 million domestic workers countrywide from national labor law and set an important precedent for other states. The bill has several supporters in the Assembly and the Senate, and on Thursday, Governor Patterson said he would sign it if it passes the legislature. The bill would amend New York State labor law and guarantee that over 200,000 nannies and housekeepers in the state a living wage, overtime pay, sick leave, severance and health benefits, and protection from employment discrimination.
The Domestic Workers Bill of Rights was drafted by members of the group Domestic Workers United 5 years ago. Well, today, notwithstanding the latest upheaval in the New York State legislature, as the bill stands on the threshold of being taken up by the legislature, we're joined by a former nanny in New York City, originally from Barbados, now a full-time organizer with Domestic Workers United. Her name is Jocelyn Gill Campbell. Welcome to Democracy Now! Jocelyn, lay out what this Bill of Rights is.
The Bill of Rights is asking for paid vacation, sickness benefit, severance pay, notice prior to being fired. In the actual word, we're asking for what other workers are getting. You know, we want to be treated like rail workers.
And how has the battle gone throughout to get the bill to the legislature, and what were the prospects that you had before this chaos erupted this week over who controls the New York State Senate?
Actually, the process of having the bill gone as far as it wasn't really easy, because when we first started this bill, we had to be educating the legislators and the public to the abuses and the exploitations that workers were facing. And, you know, right now, with all that is going on Albany, we are still very optimistic about having this bill pass out of legislation onto the governor.
Can you, Jocelyn, tell us your story?
Well, actually, my story being involved as a domestic worker is when I first came to this country, I was enrolled in the Allen School, doing nursing, the Allen Nursing School. And while studying that, I took the job as a babysitting to, you know, to help with other expenses. And I was working to a very well-to-do family, and I was taking care of one little girl. And they had 2 dogs. And one of the dogs developed cancer and could not walk. So they went out and they bought a double stroller. So as I speak to you now, you get the picture. So at that time, I was made to wear a white uniform. So it meant that I had to push the dog and the little girl in the stroller in a white uniform through the streets of Manhattan. Now, I'm not against people being animal lovers, but the fact is that having to work more than 40 hours per week, I was only paid $271.50 every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks, which equivalent to $135.25.
So you were being paid $2 something an hour?
An hour, less than minimum wage.
And how would the Bill of Rights change this?
The Bill of Rights is going to set guidelines, standard guidelines for employers and protection for the workers. And at the same time, it's going to put that those guidelines will tell the employers that you cannot ignore the rights of the domestic worker any longer because they're set guidelines. You have to follow this. You know, because right now, at this 2000, you find that we still have workers working for less than minimum wage. We have workers that are working for less than $300 per week. We have workers that are working 50 and 60 hours in this industry a week. You know.
And how difficult has it been to organize Domestic Workers United, given the fact that many of those domestic workers are immigrants and some may be abused by their employers because they may be undocumented while they're in the country?
At first, when we first started doing outreach, it was so difficult because the workers were afraid. And we do recruit them through a series of outreach, the playgrounds, even the churches, even the bookshops, stores where you will find a nanny browsing through, like The Gap. We do street outreach. We do, Just Racial and Economic Justice came aboard with us, and they've been doing employer organizing. And some employers have been allowing their members day workers to become members, and some are not. It has not really been easy, like I said, because sometimes when you're doing outreach, the workers are afraid to speak to you. So we have to reassure them, you know, that the employees do not have to know that they're members of the organization. I remember when I first came to the organization, the membership was like 25 members for a general meeting, which is all the third Saturday in every month. But some Saturdays now we have at least 100 members coming out.
When you said that you worked 40 hours a week, it's not quite that, was it? Because you slept there at night. When I was reading testimony of yours talking about sleeping in the den next to the sick dog.
I only slept over at weekends. You know, I wasn't living. It's only on weekends.
And you had to take care of it.
And then one of the dogs, the cat scratched a dog in his eye, and he had to be given eye drops. So I was sleeping in a den and the dog in a cage. So through the night, every 4 hours, I had to wake up to put the eye drops into the dog eyes, which was very dehumanizing, you know.
Well, we will certainly continue to follow this issue. With the chaos in the New York State legislature, it's unclear on every level what's going to happen, but the Domestic Bill of Rights, if passed, could be a model for what happens around the country. Joycelyn Gill Campbell, thanks very much for being with us, full-time organizer with Domestic Workers United from Barbados, former nanny here in New York City. As we wrap up today on this, well, very significant day. Juan?
Yes, well, events are being held today around the world to mark what would have been Anne Frank's 80th birthday. In Amsterdam, the Anne Frank House Museum has announced it will put her diaries on permanent display. The museum is located in the house where Frank's family hid from the Nazis from 1942 to 1944, and where she wrote her now world-famous diaries of life during the Holocaust. Anne Frank died at the age of 15 of typhus in Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in the spring of 1945, just weeks before the concentration camp was liberated. Her diary was recovered and preserved by Miep Gies, a Dutch woman who helped the Frank family while they were in hiding. The diary was first published in 1947 and has since become one of the most widely read books in the world.
Well, on Wednesday, a new play called Anne and Emmett was scheduled to open at the Holocaust Memorial Museum. The play centers on an imaginary conversation between Anne Frank and Emmett Till, the 14-year-old African-American boy who was lynched in Money, Mississippi in 1955. But the play's opening was postponed after the gunman with ties to white nationalist groups opened fire at the museum Wednesday, killing a black security guard. To end today's show, we air a short video produced by the Anne Frank Center USA here in New York as part of their Anne Frank Diary recording project.